You're listening to Australia's national youth radio station, Triple J. For more info, go to triplej.net.au.
Thanks to the intervention of the ABC Board and the generous support of the Macquarie Bank, Triple J reluctantly presents the following 2 hours of unbiased, fair and balanced coverage of the week's topical issues. Would you please be upstanding for the national anthem? And your hosts, Stirling Addison LLB Hons, and guest as we present Restoring the Balance.
Good evening and welcome to Restoring the Balance, the show that is a foghorn of conservative truth, warning those about to crash on left liberals' rocks of deception. I would like to welcome fellow Conservatives who may be listening this evening, including Tina Ben-Kaiser, Chairman of the Republican Party of Texas. I hope that you may find in this program a spirit of rugged individualism that you do so much to promote. Coming up this evening, we will speak to Defence Analyst Dr. Carlo Kopp. We will also catch up with Senator Barnaby Joyce, and from the Institute of Public Affairs, John Roscombe. Plus, my co-host tonight from the Assemblies of God, a man who I will introduce to you very shortly. He's a good friend of ours. His name is Spencer. This is Restoring the Balance on Triple J. The phone number here, if you'd like to weigh into whatever debate we are having tonight, 1300 0555 36. I'd like to open the phones at the moment on David Hicks. David Hicks, now there are claims that 5 years is too long to be incarcerated. People here at the ABC have actually protested on taxpayers' time Hicks's 5-year wait. I find that amusing. The public servants would complain about procedural delays, official inaction and bureaucratic tardiness. At the ABC, getting anything done in 5 years is called overnight express. Still, it is no surprise that the cause of David Hicks has found much sympathy with the militant, lesbian-dominated workforce here at the ABC. I mean, naturally, they identify with a fellow cropped-haired, America-hating, dungaree-wearing zealot. Now, I would say this about David Hicks. Like the chastity belt on Julia Gillard, we must throw away the key. Now, the family of David Hicks must thank the Honourable John Howard for his intervention in this case, for it is a measure of the great man's stature and statesmanship that our ally and friend, America, ran around immediately to appease John Howard when he raised the issue angrily with the Vice President when he visited here 2 weeks ago. Now, I would like to say this about David Hicks's case. The facts are irrelevant. When we think of war's tragic figures, our minds are wont to recall Helen of Troy, but not David Hicks, for his is a face that launched 1,000 rockets. And I say this to you, Triple J listeners, who would no doubt agree with me, that the 5 years has been an agonising wait for us too, for we thirst for justice. We, the people, the victims of David Hicks, thirst for justice. Now, in anticipation of a guilty verdict, if there is one, I would like you to call me now on 1300 0555 36 and discuss with me what punishment you would like to see meted out to David Hicks. Give me a call. This is Restoring the Balance. Speaking of matters legal, David Hicks, we are discussing his punishment as we wait in joyful anticipation of a guilty verdict being handed down by the fair and reasonable military tribunal system to which he is being subjected for trial. There is some suggestion that he may indeed spend his sentence in Australia. I don't like breathing the same air as this man. It is a thought that distresses me greatly. But I'm asking you on the number to ring and discuss what punishment you would like to see David Hicks subjected to if he is found guilty. If. Good evening, Mark from Huonville.
Hi.
We have Renee from Melbourne. Good evening, Renee.
How you going?
Renee, your thoughts on David Hicks?
Look, he's chosen to be the path of a terrorist. I don't want him back.
Yes.
They can do whatever they want with him.
Yes, and what...
I think John Howard's getting a raw deal over it. We don't want anything to do with terrorists.
Yes, yes. What would you do to him if you were left alone with him? I'm not talking about the Honourable John Howard. I'm talking about David Hicks.
I don't know, take him in the eye a few times.
Yes.
Stick the rabbits onto him or something.
Yes, yes. That's not vengeance. That's justice.
Yes, I think so.
Yes, I'm sure you'd find a hole for that rocket launcher he's so fond of posing with.
Oh, look, you just blow him up or something. He doesn't deserve only
I wouldn't go that far. I
he
think
likes blowing people up. What's wrong with that?
I think another 5 years to contemplate his navel in an orange jumpsuit should be just about enough. Yes, but you're a fair-minded woman, Renee, and it's good to have you listening to the program. Yes. We need more people like Renee. A silent majority, I would say. 1300 0555 36. We have Mark from Huonville. He is back. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening.
Mark, how would you like to see David Hicks, member of Al Qaeda, punished?
I think that when he is found guilty, and I've no doubt that a guilty verdict will be returned.
Yes.
That he should be returned to Australia and entrusted to the care of John and Jeanette.
How is that a punishment? That would be a feather duster over the knuckles. That would be an honour.
No, I don't think so. I'd imagine that both Jeanette and John run a very tight ship in their household.
Yes, well, they have produced 3 magnificent children who are a credit to them.
Exactly right. Those children would have been shown the back of Jeanette's hand at some time.
I decry that accusation. I decry it and will not have it on this program. Thank you, Mark. Now, at the meeting that I had recently this week in View Street Willara of the Young Liberals, I was urged repeatedly by my colleagues to break my silence on the Oscar award that was given to Al Gore for his Enviro treatise, the supposedly melting polemic, An Inconvenient Truth. I decry this film also, because I think it should have been made by Disney, because its claims are the stuff of fairy tales. I know it's been very popular with Triple J listeners who have uncritically swallowed its claims. Well, I have an inconvenient truth for the new moral mouthpiece of Hollywood and Triple J listeners. Al Gore is fat. He's large. But thanks to the Supreme Court of the US, he is not in charge. And we're all the better for it. He thinks the planet is heating up. Well, Mr. Al Gorged, here is a man, I tell you, who lives in fear of stage 3 gravy restrictions. This is the only fluid he fears losing. Now, this man, Al Gore, attempts to answer many questions in his films, such as who's polluting the planet, who didn't sign Kyoto, and obviously, looking at him, who ate all the pies. Now, this man tells us the sea levels are rising. Well, I tell you they do. Oh, they do, every time Al Gore goes for a swim. He is not to be believed. I tell you, turn away from this film if somebody puts it on. It is a piece of fiction. Now, if only Al Gorged had put down his plate full of sausages and turned his hand to making a documentary about a real threat to the planet, about a real threat to every one of us, about a dangerous thing. And I'm talking, of course, about any repeal of the 1997 Taxation Law Amendment relating to trust loss and other deductions that would impose general restrictions on family trusts claiming deductions for prior year losses. Just think of the carnage. This is Restoring the Balance. 1300 0555 36.
Triple J drum logo is a beautiful and distinctive trademark of our wonderful station.
So obviously, it's high time someone smashed it.
We want you to take the drum and get your crayons and your textures,
Your urine,
your blood,
your spray cans,
your Photoshop,
but maybe not the blood, urine and Photoshop together.
but smash out something new and wonderful.
The best entries will be featured on the Triple J website, with the top smasher getting into the next J-Mag.
But there's a good prize too. The winner also gets flown to the Sydney Semi-Permanent Design Conference to bolster their design smashing skills.
Use that good prize. Hit the Triple J website for all the details and the image of the drum for you to quiz.
Smash the drum, for goodness sake. For Triple J.
Restoring the Balance. Proudly using non-union labour.
It is a proud claim. This is Triple J. The phone number here, 1300 0555 36. Your tax is at work there. You may as well employ it. I'm asking at the moment David Hicks. He is about to face trial, a fair trial. If he is found guilty, of course, on behalf of all Triple J listeners, I can only hope that he is. I'm asking, what punishment would you like to see meted out to him? And we have Yoke of Karatha. Good evening.
Good evening.
I trust I got your name right.
No, it's actually Yorick.
Yorick.
Like Shakespeare.
Yes.
You should know Shakespeare being a
literary man, yes.
Yes, of course.
Yes. Now, punishment for David Hicks. You are in charge of the punishment for the man in the orange jumpsuit, the man who loves posing with a rocket launcher, the man who fought against freedom. What would you do?
Well, he is a South Australian, so we can't give him anything that's too intense because he may enjoy it. So we probably have to give him something, possibly spending some time with your fiancée, who we haven't heard about for quite some time.
Penny is often in my thoughts.
She is? Is she still your fiancée? Are you still engaged to be married?
No, well, as I said last week, we are enduring a painful engagement. Painful because of the celibacy involved. But
does this have anything to do with possibly, did she feel jealous of your thoughts for the wonderful Melanie?
No, not at all, not at all. And I have repeatedly urged Penny to consider having the same hairstyle and same dress and same caterers as Melanie used on the day she got married. I think I've already made that clear.
Well, of course you have, yes.
But, people often ask, is the relationship in danger? What sort of woman is she? And I can only say this. This is the sort of woman that my Penny is. She's somebody who helps people, always helps people.
Well, David Hicks needs help too.
Well, he does need a lot of help. He needs some psychiatric...
properly give him the help that he would require to be restored back into the community? Or do you think he would require some reschooling and re-education?
He would need some re-education. Of course, that would all be lost if he came to work here at the ABC, which, as we know, is run by the Viet Cong.
Yes, of course. Well, it's definitely not run by the Japanese government or anything like that, because that would be more of a British style of government system.
Such as the Westminster system, which is the finest system of government in the known world. And just look at the Anglosphere and look at the primacy of those countries that do have the Westminster system of government. And you will see that there is scarcely a better system of government ever invented.
Well, yes, of course. We have seen many others fail.
Yes, this is an argument I would prefer to have at university.
Of course, yes. But David Hicks, I mean, could we string him up? Can we tie him to a pole? Can we beat him with hooks?
I understand the urge for mob justice, and that has its time and it has its place.
But you do not believe that it is?
There should only be a mob surrounding him if one is ordered to form by fellow broadcaster Alan Jones. I don't have that kind of authority.
I think you do, Stirling.
I don't yet. I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
You're doing well.
You are one man of a larger gathering army, and it's been good to speak to you.
Thank you.
It's Restoring the Balance on Triple J. Shortly, we speak to defence analyst Carlo Kopp about the government's planned purchase, $15 billion purchase of the Joint Strike Fighter. But we are talking on things, defence, and the current strategic situation, I guess you could call it, the current ongoing war on terror, in which we are all part. David Hicks, he is soon to go on trial, although there has been a delay, there has been a hitch, but we all, I know, as Triple J listeners, all urge justice, some sort of justice for what this man has done to us. And I'm asking, what punishment would you like to see meted out to David Hicks in the event that he is found guilty? We have James from Sydney. Good evening, James.
Good evening.
James, you are a one-man jury. You have the power to punish David Hicks. What would you do?
Well, I think there's already a precedent set here for dealing with people if they are found guilty.
Yes.
And, there were two French terrorists who blew up the Rainbow Warrior in Auckland Harbour. In
self-defence?
Well, yes, they blew them up because they didn't want them to be protesting about nuclear testing in the Pacific.
Yes. Noble cause, yes.
Yes, so those people, after they spent a short time in jail in New Zealand, the French government, they looked after their incarceration.
Yes.
And they sent them to a Pacific island in the Pacific.
Yes.
And they had a honeymoon and they got pregnant and then they went back to France and lived happily ever after.
Yes, I'm sure.
Well, I thought that might be a good punishment for David Hicks. He probably needs a bit of a holiday after that kind of incarceration.
I would argue, James, that 9 months spent carrying a Frenchman is punishment enough for anything.
Well, it all depends on the way of the carrying, I guess.
You're also ignoring the brutal economic reality here, James, and that is, and this is true, the New Zealand government wanted to sell butter in Europe, and the quid pro quo was the release. The quid pro quo was the releasing of the 2 French freedom fighters, and the New Zealand government signed off on it.
That's true, they did, because obviously they had such great faith in the way that the French would...
well, this is international politics, my friend.
Yes.
There is blood on many hands.
I'm sure you must have great faith in the French yourself.
Well, they do what they do, but they just do it with a French accent. They are the coalition of the treacherous. They did not fight the good fight in France, or they didn't even fight it there in 1944. They didn't fight it in Iraq in 2003. Don't turn your back on one.
But it seems that they are fighting the good fight with us to help develop the nuclear industry for all of its safety and dealing with climate change.
I'm glad you mentioned that, James, because I will be talking about nuclear power shortly. So stick around there as a highlight for any conservative-minded fan of the show, such as James. Thank you, James. Now, as mentioned earlier, the Australian government has allocated $15 billion to the planned purchase of 100 new aircraft to defend Australia and its way of life from the teeming unchristian hordes to the north. Now, there are some with the temerity to question the type of fighter aircraft chosen in what will be the single largest purchase by a government since Kim Beazley last put dinner on his ministerial visa. I got that from a member of the Liberal Party, and it still causes much amusement. Now, in the studio, I'm joined by a leading Doubting Thomas and defence analyst who would have us believe that by virtue of his academic credentials and background, knows more about military aircraft than the Minister of Defence himself. Would you please welcome Dr. Carlo Kopp. Good evening, Dr. Kopp.
And it's a pleasure to be here tonight.
I would think that it is. Now, Dr. Kopp, you have raised doubts about the purchase of 100 of these fighter aircraft at a planned cost of $15 billion, the largest purchase by any government since Federation. What is exactly is your reservation about the aircraft, the Joint Strike Fighter?
I think, to put it in the simplest of terms, the aircraft is not really good enough or really the appropriate type of aircraft for the type of environment that we will see in this region in the future. And as you referred to, of course, the nations to our north...
Yes, the teeming unchristian hordes.
Well, I don't know whether that's necessarily true, but...
Well, I put it to you, Dr. Kopp, that we are we not, in regional terms, a virginal, innocent, beautiful maiden in a room full of, well, let's put it, lecherous, licentious, salivating wretches lustfully coveting us.
Oh, I think that's probably a bit of an overstatement, but I think if you look at the pragmatic realities of it, our neighbours to the north, and especially China, have been spending a lot of money on Russian aircraft. And
yes.
A lot of these are very good Russian aircraft.
Powered by vodka, yes.
Well, don't know if they're spiking the vodka with kerosene, but I do understand that they had this practice of taking the brake fluid and distilling it to sort of make moonshine. So
yes, some enemy. Now, Brendan Nelson has made this decision. Would he rush into a $15 billion impulse purchase? I would say that he would not.
Well, certainly with the Super Hornet purchase, it appears that he has, on a whim, decided to purchase $4 billion worth of aircraft. And
money well spent, yes.
$2 billion worth of running costs. Unfortunately, the aircraft is not the top-ranked aircraft, certainly in what's available from the United States. And, in fact, it's an aircraft that's come under a fair amount of criticism by American analysts for not being good enough. So I suppose the question that one would ask, and from an essentially conservative perspective here,
yes.
is, why is our minister buying second or third best aircraft?
I would warn you there, Dr. Cobb, that any further criticism of the government on this particular station, they're quite used to getting criticised by, of course, the ABC. If you continue to criticise the government, you will leave here in an orange jumpsuit. I would happily do that. But I would abhor any suggestion that you make that any wrong purchase has been made. Can you name one single government program, defence program, that has gone over budget or has been in any way a disaster?
Well, I think probably if you look at reports from ANAO and other publications, you'll probably find that every major project they have touched for at least the last 10 years has not been particularly successful. And again, coming at it from a conservative perspective, one has to ask the question here, why is it that the bureaucracy has such enormous influence?
That is a good question. We need smaller government. That is implicit in what you're saying.
Yet we have seen a situation, I think, where a lot of this bureaucracy has grown in size and influence, in fact, probably over the last 15 years.
Yes, yes. Reading between the lines from what you're saying there is a belief that Howard is a Churchillian figure of resilience and defiance, and Rudd is a lily-livered, limp-wristed appeaser. Would you agree with that?
Well, I'm not in the position to comment. I haven't had the pleasure to meet either of our esteemed, let's say, our leader and our esteemed opposition leader. So I'd hardly be in the position to form judgments.
Dr. Kopp, I would urge you to resign yourself to the reality that Dr. Nelson is a brilliant defence minister and has made a brilliant decision and has secured our Christian way of life for the next 2 generations.
Well, that's an interesting position to take, of course, because certainly the consensus amongst all the leading defence analysts in Australia over the last 3 months is that the Super Hornet choice was not a very good choice. And, in fact, if we take it a step further, we have many very staunchly conservative retired Air Force officers and other retired defence personnel who have soundly condemned the purchase publicly or in submissions. So if you are looking at this, I suppose what we like to call a non sequitur here, which is a minister who has declared himself to be an icon of conservatism.
Yes, hero.
Yet he has managed via this decision to, in fact, alienate a good number of very conservative individuals who have impeccable records.
Yes, I'll bring it up with him most assuredly at the next meeting of the Kirribilli Young Liberals. Dr. Kopp, thank you very much for joining us.
It was a pleasure. Restoring the Balance,
Triple J, the phone number here if you'd like to participate in some reasoned conservative debate, 1300 0555 36, the SMS number. And of course, this being the ABC, it really couldn't be any other number but 1975 7555. A bunch of washed-up lefties who can't get over the dismissal of the Whitlam government and need to remind themselves that this alleged travesty of democracy in the SMS number, 1975. Pathetic. Or is it? It did mark the ascension to power of a Conservative Prime Minister, Mr. Malcolm Fraser. So in that regard, it is acceptable. We are talking all manner of things on the show this evening. I will be joined shortly by fellow Conservative and a man of great religious conviction from the Assemblies of God, Mr. Spencer Penrose. We are also talking tonight about punishments you would like to see meted out to David Hicks, the Australian who saw fit to leave the freedoms he enjoyed in this country and go and fight for a tyrannical regime in Afghanistan, with a tyrannical regime. And we're asking, if you had the power, how would you like to see him punished? And we have Boyne from the great naval town of Nowra, home of HMAS Albatross. Good evening, Boyne.
Yeah, how you going, dude?
Very well.
That's good. No, I'm actually only visiting for a week. I'm originally from Ballina, so
yes.
Just down here. Just
well, what are you doing? What are you doing in Nowra?
Just doing a sales trip down here.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
It is a lovely town.
It's gorgeous. I haven't been here for 15 years, and it's like, yeah, it's just amazing. I'm really happy with it.
Yes. Yes. Now, you wanted to weigh in on David Hicks?
Yeah, like I'm fairly strongly against people like David Hicks, and
we all are.
Yeah, so we should be. But there's, we get all this stuff about people saying that, the poor bugger should be brought back to Australia, and
Pish posh. Yeah, it's rubbish. It's rubbish. But yes, continue.
It is. So, like two peas in a pod, both parties guilty. I think an appropriate punishment might be to send him over to Bali and put him for 5 years in his jumpsuit, tie him up in front of Chappelle Corby.
Yes.
That would be quite torturous, like looking at Chappelle Corby but not being able to touch her.
Well, touching her would be the punishment. I have seen her in papers. For those who don't know, Chappelle Corby is a Commodore driver who got convicted of smuggling drugs, I think it was. To
Commodore, I thought she was a Ford driver, actually.
Well,
go ahead.
She looks like the sort of person who'd have personalised number plates on her Commodore. She'd risen to the top of the beauty industry, I think, and threw away a glamorous career doing fingernails for women who work in retail to it seems, cart drugs around the place.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, on behalf of her sister. So, like, good luck to her, and she's where she belongs. That's my belief. I think she's actually quite attractive all the same, regardless of, the mould. But, for David Hicks, after 5 years in incarceration, to put him in front of her for 5 years without being able to touch her, and then at the culmination of that, the guy would be going stark raving mad if he's not already.
Yes.
And then possibly just send him back to the US and put him in one of the prisons there to serve out a life sentence.
Well, I would like to think he would come back to Australia, but be caught up on some sort of visa hitch and spend 5 years in Baxter.
Baxter?
Yes. Back to where he belongs in South Australia.
Oh, seriously, no problem.
Boyne,
whatever. Like, it's a bit more hardcore in the States, so, like, I was just thinking that way. So, but if you want to think, with Olympics in Australia, then fine, put him here.
Yes, Boyne, you have enriched the show considerably with your incisive comments, and I thank you and enjoy the nightlife, such as it is, in Nowra. We have Danny from Sydney.
No, Stirling, I'm from the Lower North Shore.
Lower North Shore.
Yes.
Brother, yes.
Now, I believe a suitable punishment for David Hicks would be re-education, similar to the style of that movie, The Clockwork Orange, where he could be subjected to the enlightened comment of columnists such as Piers Ackerman and Miranda Devine.
Yes.
And
also, Janet Albrechtson.
Yes. Oh, yes. I'm getting quite aroused there. Excuse me, I'm a bit flushed. And also, if he was to be read, some of the transcripts of the H.R. Nichols Society's meetings, it might get something into his skull about the right way to treat people.
We should all read them. And thanks to you, Danny, I will endeavour as best I can to get a hot link onto the website, Restoring the Balance website, for the H.R. Nichols Society. Thank you for your call. This is Restoring the Balance. Shortly, we will speak with Assemblies of God attendee and keen churchgoer Spencer Penrose. This is Restoring the Balance on Triple J. John Roscombe, Chairman of the Institute of Public Affairs, who will be joining us shortly on the show. This is a great honour for any conservative-minded youth who, of course, do listen to Restoring the Balance, and of you there are many too who attend Christian service every Sunday. It is a pleasure now to be joined by a member of the Family First Party. He's a former youth pastor at Paradise Community Church in South Australia. He joins me now. He is a good friend of mine. I will give you some explanation as to how we came into each other's orbit. You would, of course, know Reverend Lucas Winsham, pastoral care instructor at Shaw, Sydney C of E Grammar, with whom I still pray weekly. I still pray and seek spiritual guidance during what is an extremely tough courtship, I should say, with my fiancée Penny. But he joins us now. He's, as I said, member of Family First Party, Mr. Spencer Penrose. Spencer, good evening, and thank you for coming in on this of all day, the Sabbath.
Well, thank you, Stirling, and God bless you. It has been a rather busy weekend, as a matter of fact, for me. But angels on your body for having me on the show.
Oh, thank you, yes.
Quite the weekend, obviously. I am missing service.
Yes.
And I went from Adelaide to Canberra yesterday to pray for rain.
Yes. This is, John Howard has looked after, shall we say, the temporal part of the drought solution, but this is a daring, faith-based solution to the crippling drought that only the believers of this world could engineer. Is that right?
Wonderful fun. About 1,500 of my Christian brothers and sisters.
Yes.
An informal jamboree for Jesus, if you will.
Yes.
In our nation's capital, basically like a Christian rain dance.
Yes.
Doing whatever it is we can with God to get Australia's dams bursting. And we like to say at the church that it's the only time that you'll ever see a Christian say the word God and dam in the same sentence, of course. I mean, our vision would be that we'd be praying, and at some stage there would be husbandry in heaven.
Yes.
The rain would come down in torrents, and it would look something like a Jars of Clay film clip or music video.
Yes.
But it was not to be, unfortunately.
They have not been played here on Triple J, and of course nothing encapsulate the unchristian bias of this particular station in their refusal to play good Christian bands such as Creed.
Jars of Clay, as I mentioned.
Jars of Clay.
DC Talk.
Yes.
Newsboys, a fine Australian band.
Yes.
Amy Grant.
Yes. The message of these songs is too life-affirming. You will get on Triple J if you promote sodomy and drug use.
Of course.
Hopefully within the first verse.
Oh, I'm glad that you bring that up because I feel somewhat as if I am in the belly of the beast because I have had, just looking at my CV, which thankfully not written by Kelvin Thompson, but some of the things that I have been involved with in Triple J. I mean, I have committed myself to youth and youth-orientated spirituality.
Yes.
And some of the songs have brushed me up the wrong way. I was spearheading the campaign back in '89 when Triple J played NWA's F the Police.
F the Police. I think we know what the word F means.
Yeah. And
it doesn't mean support the police.
No.
It was a clarion call to anti-establishment activity that the public paid for.
Wrong.
Absolutely
wrong. On the public payroll.
Now, was that a faith-based initiative again? Did you pray to remove that and Tony Biggs from Triple J at the time?
Certainly, yes, we did. I mean, and that wasn't even the first instance. Even the first song played on Triple J, You Just Like Me Because I'm Good in Bed.
Yes, exactly.
Back in the day, we campaigned against that. And in 2003, of course, the song 77%. By The Herd.
Yes, which was the approval rating of John Howard.
Yes.
And continues to be so. Oh, the C word.
Yeah.
Which is not Christian, as we know.
Not Christian and not Christ.
Yes.
So we managed to have some success, and that's not even counting my campaign against the rhythm method with Andy Glitterer. Way back in the day, of course. Yes. So many problems.
Crusader for Christ, it's good to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Now, Nadine, your wife as well. Now, I should point out that I knew Spencer many years ago when he was indeed courting Nadine, and they had committed themselves, like I have, I must say involuntarily, it is a stress at times, but they had committed themselves to a chaste courtship, and that both, and this is, I think, what sealed our friendship, when you and Nadine got together and declared that you had given your genitals to Jesus.
That is true. True. And, of course, it's a wonderful way to live. And after we were married, of course, we have been trying. God hasn't blessed us in the way that we would like him to with children. My seed cannot find any purchase. But luckily, I do find time to spend time with youth. I do a lot of work with children's theatre, especially in the ministry, and some of the madcap sketches and drama things that we get up to.
Yes.
Really quite fun. So, I mean, that end of my life is taken care of. But Nadine, as you say, a wonderful, wonderful girl.
Yes. Spencer, you will be sticking around with us and providing a much-needed, if I can use some argot of the street, a Christian eye on the game.
I'm more than happy to do that.
Thank you. This is Restoring the Balance on Triple J.
Restoring the balance. Global warming hysteria ends here.
You can text us on 1975 7555. At the moment, we are taking your suggestions for punishments for alleged terrorist. I should say that again. Alleged terrorist David Hicks. I'm joined in the studio at the moment by Family First member Spencer Penrose, who will be joining us for the next hour. Now, we spoke to the following senator last week. We got a stream of expletives and basic untruths. Here's a man who has crossed the floor and plunged the knife of betrayal into the back of the Prime Minister, John Howard, especially when it came to the privatisation of Telstra. Not surprising, he is a Roman Catholic. He joins us now. He is Barnaby Joyce, the senator from Queensland. Good evening, Barnaby.
Good evening again, and thanks for having me.
It is a contractual and binding obligation. You are, of course, with Spencer Penrose and myself. Spencer is from the Family First Party. Do you remember them, Senator Joyce?
Yes, we have Senator Fielding actually is in the room next door to me.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, relations are cordial. I mean, we have been praying for you. I mean, I'm still sort of waiting on an apology from you, Barnaby. I mean, after you took offence at a couple of pamphlets and what have you.
Yeah, I was just a couple of the things you said were, I thought, a little bit on the edge. Satan's temples included my local bottle shop in that one.
Right. Yes. I imagine you pray there as an Irish Catholic nightly.
Yeah, well, it helps pass the night away when you're in places like Low Desert.
I mean, but nonetheless, you did benefit from our preference flows.
Actually, yeah, well, I suppose I did. It got down to a case whether you guys were going to benefit from me or I was going to benefit from you. And at the end of the day, I crossed the line. But the deal you guys did with the Democrats, very sneaky.
Right, yes.
Democrats.
We could dwell on that, but we won't. Basket weavers from South Australia being as they are. I wanted to speak to you, Roman Catholic Senator Barnaby Joyce, about Qantas. We did talk about this last week Will you fly Qantas, given that you so vehemently opposed the actions of the free market and its sale to local and overseas interests?
Yeah, well, I've got a concern. I've got a concern that if you... I'm still going to fly it because I still want the jobs to be in Australia. But, I've got a problem that I think that we may have got the ball rolling here on something that could bring Qantas unstuck. I hope it doesn't. But look, Ansett unfortunately went broke, and never think that a airline is infallible, although we all know the Pope is. And
yes,
with
typical.
The debt levels that Qantas currently has, anybody will be able to tell you that the people who own the debt are going to have a huge say in what the company does. And if they want to cut costs, they're going to cut costs, and it might be at the expense of Australia.
Surely a debt represents a massive opportunity.
No, debt usually means that you really don't have a fair say in what you do. I think higher debt levels are more important than nominal shareholdings, and I think that I hope it doesn't come to fruition, but if an event goes against Australia or a certain incident, a terrorist incident happens, then stresses will be put on Qantas, which will mean that the people who have lent Qantas billions of dollars will step in and say, well, these are the actions you must take so that we don't put at risk our money, and those actions include cost-cutting, moving offshore, etc. But I hope that doesn't happen.
Now, your fellow swinger of rosary beads was in the news this week. Paul Keating lashed out at John Howard, the most uncivilised attack, the sort of attack we're used to. What were your thoughts on that? What were your thoughts?
Yeah, pretty unstatesmanlike. It was humorous. I had to admit I had a bit.
I didn't see anybody laughing.
I had a bit of a laugh, but I don't think that he's got to try and make sure he doesn't look like a bitter and twisted old man. He's got to always remember that there is a dignity to office, and you've got to try and not so much. Once you've been the Prime Minister, you've got to stop trying to be the comedian.
Yes.
Barnaby, I couldn't help but notice that about a month ago you aided the Queensland Young Nationals with their newest marketing tool, which is a 1977 Nationals green combi van plastered with the Nationals logo.
Yeah.
A question to you. With the Australian automobile industry in such decline, 600 jobs going from GMH Holden recently in Adelaide, wouldn't the message be better served on, say, an Australian car, something like the Lightburn Zeta?
Well, yeah. What's that? The Leyland one? P76?
The Leyland P76. Yes.
I didn't know cars were made in Australia.
Well, we hope they will be into the future. But, maybe I think you've got a point there. I was a bit concerned about that. But, the cameras were out and the lights were flashing. You know what your job is then.
Is it a chance to cash in on some of that Little Miss Sunshine coin, try and get some of that sentiment going? Are you proposing something for inner city types, maybe a Nationals VW Golf?
Yeah, well, I think that is a marketing ploy. And in quiet nights like I have at Bow Desert tonight, I'm putting those thoughts through my head, thinking that maybe there is a corner of the market there that we can grab, but not that we would be, trying to cut out Family First. Maybe we can share that corner together.
Well, speaking of Family First, I noticed with the Nationals, of course, there's the combi van, plenty of room in the back there for a Queensland national to cuddle up with his sister.
Yeah.
His sister, which, if I'm reminded, Barnaby, is the main problem you had with a fully privatised Telstra and services to the bush. You would be unable to SMS a Valentine's to your sister.
That's right. That is a concern that we have. We like to believe in strong family relationships, but not of the sort that I think that you're alluding to. We've ruled incest out long ago.
Yes. Now we find you at the moment in a desert. Is that correct?
Well, I'm in Bow Desert. It's a sort of a oxymoronic because it is neither beautiful nor a desert. But it is certainly it's a good town about 60 kilometres west of the Gold Coast, and it's quickly filling up with people from Victoria and New South Wales. So the population is growing all the time, like all of southeast Queensland. I don't know what's happening down south there, but you guys are all seem to be on your way up here.
Well, Christ spent 40 days wandering the desert. I urge you to emulate that example. Senator Barnaby Joyce, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
This is Restoring the Balance on Triple J. You're with myself, young Liberal Stirling Addison, and from the Family First Party this evening, Spencer Penrose. There are moves afoot at the moment to ban and outlaw a number of things. Mexican waves have been banned down in Melbourne. The Spencer banning of meat pies has been mooted.
Right.
Long overdue, in my opinion. As a Christian, you would no doubt be outraged by the mooted ban on Christ at nativity scenes.
Oh, I certainly am.
Yes.
I didn't even know of that.
Yes, and in what is certainly the greatest surrender to the nanny state I have certainly come across, the banning of military toys and model airplanes and toy soldiers at kindergarten.
Yes, I have seen some of that.
And how are we to make war upon the unchristian enemies to the north if we have raised, dare I say, an army of sissies?
Indeed. And
who under no circumstances could field strip a Steyr rifle.
And indeed, how young children meant to defend themselves against bullying.
Yes.
Especially young Christian children.
Yes,
all very well to turn the other cheek, but now and again it's nice to turn the other cheek and deliver a roundhouse kick to the thorax.
Yes.
Only toys of a military nature can really instill that kind of behaviour amongst kiddies.
This stirs my conservative heart to see this sort of robust talk coming from a member of the Family First Party.
Yes.
Give us a call, though, on 1300 0555 36 and explain to us, what would you like to see banned?
Right.
Or what ban would you like to see banned?
Formerly, I would have liked to see Triple J banned. Of course, a stronghold of Satan and a den of malfeasance, but thankfully, with Restoring the Balance, the title says it all.
Yes. These are Christians reclaiming the night, if you will.
Indeed.
Yes, reclaiming the airwaves for the greater glory. This is Triple J.
Triple J is busily stuffing those snags for the biggest festival barbecue in the world. Backstage at 3 huge Easterish festivals, West Coast Blues and Roots, Southern Roots and The Great Escape. For your chance to win tickets and share a hot dog with some of the hot acts on those lineups, make sure you're listening from Brekkie tomorrow morning on Triple J.
Restoring the Balance on Triple J. Your taxes barely at work.
This is Restoring the Balance. You're with myself, Stirling Addison, and from the Family First Party, Mr. Spencer Penrose. Many years ago, I'm told there was a film called Titanic.
Right.
It's, I believe, a 4-hour epic about, of course, the great ship, which was made in the Protestant shipyard of Harland and Wolff in Belfast by Protestant hands. It was fashioned. We, of course, know what happened to it. A film was made about it. I never saw the film, but Penny did go, and she went with her friend Jeffrey, and she came back raving about something called the popcorn trick. Oh. I have no idea. I believe that's in the film. But apparently, it's Jeffrey's speciality, or I believe it was either in the film or in the cinema. And I've never got to the bottom of that. But the director of that movie is at it again. There has been claims that the bones of Christ the Redeemer himself,
that's right,
our Lord Jesus Christ, have been found in Jerusalem, I believe, Spencer.
Well, James Cameron, the director of Titanic, has always had an interest in Christ. I mean, if you look at Titanic and you see the scene of, I believe it's Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet on the end of the boat at the front there, stretching out their arms as if to reenact the crucifix, and in the end, of course, he does die for her.
Yes,
and of course,
I would like to think that is a death for blasphemy.
For sure. And of course, looking back at the Terminator, I mean, there's a man who comes back from the future to save all of humanity. I mean, is that really a nod to Christ? He's always had an interest, indeed.
Yes, quite apposite and well put. To discuss the possibility of a film on the controversial subject matter of finding the remains of Christ the Redeemer, which, as Anglicans, we would believe ascended to heaven, where he's seated at the right hand of the Father. To discuss this now is Reverend Howard Langmead, who is the vicar of St John's Anglican Church in Victoria. Reverend, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure. Good evening, Stirling. Good day, Spencer.
Great to see you.
Yeah, good to be here.
Reverend, how do you...
You can call me Howard.
Well, Howard. There is only one Howard in this country worth addressing. and I
don't call me Mr. Howard.
No, I will call you by your God-given title, which is Reverend. As a man of the cloth, a man of God, how do you feel about the tawdry sensationalism surrounding this? Do you think it is the stuff of a movie, the finding of the remains of Christ, the alleged finding?
Actually, it's only the stuff of movies. I don't think it's got any fact in it whatsoever. Apparently it makes a good movie, right. but it's bunkum, basically. Bunkum, that's the theological word.
Yes. And like me, Reverend Howard, you believe that Christ is not dead. I mean, he is living within all of us.
Absolutely. I mean, the basis of Christianity is that, Christ died, Christ came to life again, sent his Holy Spirit, all that basic stuff. Yeah, yes. Christianity is a historic religion based on the belief that Jesus Christ lived, died, was a historic person, and it's all there. And in fact, the resurrection, I think it says somewhere in the Bible, someone like St. Paul says, if Jesus wasn't raised from the dead, then we, of all people, are most to be pitied. And some people do pity us. But yeah, basically, my faith and Christian faith is based on the absolute belief that Jesus is alive. So when someone comes up and says, we found his bones, it is no small issue.
Yes, would it totally invalidate the religion of Christianity? Were the bones to be confirmed?
If it was confirmed, and I'd be interested to know how it was, yes, it would, in actual fact, because it isn't just an issue of what you believe. Christians say Jesus is alive. So in actual fact, Easter is all about celebrating resurrection.
Yes.
I believe Christians basically believe that the tomb was empty, that Jesus went into the tomb. When he came out, there was nothing left in the tomb, maybe the odd shroud, and there's some debate about whether you're going to find that somewhere around Italy. But Jesus came out of the tomb, and for his followers, that was a transforming moment on which they based their life. So to say, sort of in some glib American Discovery Channel show, by the way, we've got his bones, I'm going to say, I'm not so sure. Now, for me, look, they say he's got his bones. It's the whole lot of other people. It's basically a con. When I say con, it's apparently a good discussion for a movie and a great way for someone to make money.
Yes.
Not Jesus.
Yes.
Certainly not the Anglican Church. We've got enough. But there's a whole lot of archaeologists involved. And in fact, every single archaeologist who's been involved in these things lined up, regardless of their own faith position, including the Jewish archaeologists, is this actually doesn't stand up to anything.
Should those who claim that they are the bones of Christ be subjected to some canonical law? Should they be
crucifixion, maybe?
Yes, should they be subjected to some brutal punishment for blasphemy?
Going to church every Sunday.
Well, something...
Attending my Bible study classes.
Well,
I could give them a confirmation course. Would that help? Enforced Anglicanism or something like that. Look... I think, as a Christian, I think it's fair enough to say that, our faith is up for debate. That's what it's... I mean, Jesus is getting good press. He's being mentioned on the ABC so often you would not believe it.
Yes, we're bringing him back to Sunday nights.
Absolutely. Triple J now talks about Jesus.
Where it should be.
Yes.
Triple Jesus.
Maybe.
Yeah. J stands for Jesus in Triple J.
Thank you very much. Yeah, is that what it stands for?
Yes.
Now,
in my book.
It does between 9 and 11 on a Sunday night.
I'm so pleased to hear it.
It is a rest day for the Lord, but he works hard in the 120 minutes in which this show is on air.
Anyway, as I was about to say, Christianity is, because as Christians we believe it's historic faith, it is there to be looked at. And Christian archaeologists have been looking at all sorts of stuff to check out aspects of the Bible. Mostly archaeology is confirming the stuff we find in the Bible. But in actual fact, as well as that, if people are making statements against Christianity and it's not standing up to science, then that also needs to be put out there and not just sort of accept, because it's on the Discovery Channel, people are going to say this is gospel.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And it's not gospel because it's on the Discovery Channel.
Well, some of the images that I saw, I mean, if it were the tomb of Jesus, it looked remarkably humble. Wouldn't you think that the Son of God would have more of a flashy final resting place, that is...
A sarcophagus.
A tomb encrusted with jewels or perhaps festooned with gold and silver.
Funny you should say that, because you're disagreeing with the archaeologists. As one of the archaeologists said, the problem was actually the opposite. That this actually... back in Jerusalem around the turn of the couple of thousand years ago... to have a tomb like that and to have a sarcophagus, apart from being able to pronounce it, which I find great difficulty doing, they actually had to be pretty rich. Only rich people were buried in this way.
It was rich in spirit.
Yeah, but not rich in gravestones and things like that. And so in actual fact, if you're saying Jesus wasn't the one who died on the cross and came back to life again 3 days later, then he was in fact some sort of poor carpenter from Nazareth or someone who wandered around. He wasn't likely to have a tomb of a wealthy person.
Well, according to the Passion of the Christ, he invented the chair. I mean, surely he would have received some funds from that.
You really are Catholic. You base your life on the Passion of the Christ. But yeah, I think that's one of the issues that archaeologists raise, that it just doesn't fit. It doesn't fit the style of what anyone, Christian or non-Christian, understands about Jesus of Nazareth, whether or not you believed he rose from the dead. And some of the archaeologists are saying they don't necessarily support Christianity, they're not necessarily supporting the resurrection of Jesus, but they're saying it just doesn't stack up by the principles of archaeology. Now, what the Cameron guy is saying is, on these 10 sort of coffin things, sarcophagus, whatever you pronounce it, these 10 coffin things will do for Triple J.
Yes.
That on these...
Thingy where deady person is buried.
Yeah. Actually, a bit smaller than coffins is where they put the bones after the body, doesn't matter. All that stuff, Where they stick. Anyway, these had names on them. Yeah. And apparently the names were like Mary, and Joshua, which is Jesus, and Judah and a few others on these 10. And so he's saying, look, that proves it's Mary Magdalene and Mary the mother of Jesus.
And they're using this evidence to say that Jesus was in fact married.
Exactly right.
Blasphemy.
Absolute blasphemy. I prefer to think that he was hanging around all day with 12 guys in loose-fitting robes, like yourself.
Anglican, you mean?
For sure.
Okay. No, just don't go there. Just because I wear a robe occasionally doesn't mean I hang out with 12 guys. But, so... Yeah, that's right. So the assumption is that because the names are there, the name Jesus, and this may shock people, was incredibly common at the turn of the century in Israel, and it still is today. My son's called Jesus. Actually, Joshua and Jesus are the same name. Yes. And it was a very common name then because it means God saves. They're expecting a saviour, so every good Jewish family named one of their sons Jesus or Joshua. Yes. And so it was a very common name, as was Maria and Joseph and all of those. So the fact that the names appear every Tom, Dick and Jesus around the place, the fact that the names are there doesn't prove that it was Jesus.
Yes.
In fact, one of the archaeologists is saying the names they're 2,000 years old. The scratchings are so hard to read that he's saying on a couple of them you've got to use a bit of imagination to say those are the names. So can't read the names really well. Even if you do assume they're the names, they're common, and there's a lot of those. There's no evidence outside anywhere that, in fact, Jesus was married. So the question is, did he come to life is one thing. But most people, even non-Christian scholars, will accept that Jesus of Nazareth was probably crucified at about the age of 30.
Yes.
I happen to hold he came to life again.
Yes.
I base my life on it. But the fact that he lived on, married, had children, there is a whole theory around that which comes from a particular book.
If he didn't marry, maybe he had the same fiancée as me. I've said enough on that. 2,000 years old.
Sad life I hear you've got.
To give you some indication as to how long 2,000 years old is, how old something that 2,000 years old is, think of the ALP's industrial relations policy. Yes. Reverend Howard Langmead, Vicar of St John's Anglican Church in West Brunswick and social commentator, thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure, thank you.
I will see you at the next synod.
God bless you.
This is Restoring the Balance on Triple J. This is Stirling Addison, joined tonight by Spencer Penrose from the Family First Party. Our phone number here is 1300 0555 36. The song you just heard or endured there was the Cold War Kids, Hang Me Up to Dry. The Cold War Kids, of course, Spencer, reminds us of another great conflict between good and evil.
Indeed.
Another great clash of civilisations that we in the Christian world see every day.
Indeed. I was just remarking that the Cold War Kids are sensational. Maybe we should get them for the Planet Shakers conference, or perhaps involved in some sort of Vision Quest weekend.
Yes.
Something like that. Maybe we can get them to swing around to the edge. But I like that style. That's great music.
Would they play a Hillsong, for example? Would they energise the congregation?
I think
with uplifting messages?
Certainly would. You can clap your hands and stomp your feet as much as you like to those guys.
Yes, because we praise the Lord our God twice in song.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the word light, of course. Very prominent.
Now, as we were talking about earlier, we have become a nation of people who wish to ban things such as the meat pie or the Mexican wave, Jesus at nativity scenes.
Who would you get to replace Jesus in the nativity scene? Are we talking about some sort of catch-all, cross-denominational figure to be in the manger?
It would be a lump of non-offensive coal.
Of course.
The pushers of the multicultural barrow would be happy to see that as we submit to their inflexible will and intolerance. We'll not have that here on Restoring the Balance. We have asked the question, what would you like to see banned? rising to this call has been Beastie from Brisbane. Good evening, Beastie.
How are you going, Stirling? It's an honour.
Thank you. You were also with Spencer Penrose.
Yes, how are you,
bless you, Beastie.
Now, what would you like to see banned, Beastie?
I'm probably not the best call to start off with, because I think we're going a bit over the top, and I'd like to see a ban banned.
A ban banned?
Yeah.
Yes,
or lifted.
yes, such as?
Yeah, well, I live in Queensland, and there's a bit of a ban on you've got to be 18 years old to buy spray paint in the rural communities in Queensland.
Right. Yes, and with the spray paint, you would be painting your house or your car.
Apparently, they're that good that no matter what colour it is, they can paint it and it turns out chrome.
Right. Yes. Yes.
And I've just got just a bit worried whether it's going to stifle their creativity.
Yes.
Stunt their development.
Yes. I would be worried about the illicit use of spray cans.
Certainly.
Which would not, say, be used to spray the outhouse in which you and your other Christian friends meet every weekend to discuss the Bible.
That's right. God likes people of health.
Yes. So, Beastie, what are these cans being used for? Is it graffiti? Because I've long campaigned that those caught graffitiing anything should themselves have their faces graffitied.
It's an interesting idea. I like it.
Oh, then it is a good one.
Yes.
I imagine if the graffiti was some slogans of maybe the right type, it'd be okay.
Yes, that's true. If you could spray paint Beattie's face with the words "Vote Liberal."
Yeah, I love John.
Yes, Beastie, it's been an honour.
I wouldn't mind some religious graffiti myself.
Such as?
I mean, just something as simple as Jesus wept.
Yes.
Something that's 2 words.
Yes.
I mean, really, who's it hurting?
Which reminds us all of his torment in the Garden of Gethsemane.
Of course. And
yes.
And our torment trying to make it through this liberal society.
Yes, well said. Andre from Brisbane, another Queensland caller. Well, of course, as somebody once pointed out, all of Australia is Queensland. Yes. Andre, what would you like to see banned?
Oh, good evening. Hello.
Yes.
Well, I have rather an objection to this concept of people freely having water from God's sky fall into their own devices of storage.
Yes, I think you have a device of storage. It's a rather small water storage device with a small hole on one of the pipes protruding from it.
Indeed.
And as much as I'd love to continue the conversation, Andre, both Spencer and I will pray for you.
I'm sure he's looking at his phone right now and working out which end to make the hole in.
Yes, well said.
Working out creative use for that.
Well said. This is Restoring the Balance on Triple J. Now, I was in at Triple J recently, and a bunch of announcers were all gathered together. Spencer, we were discussing who would be our the I guess conservative think tank you would most admire. Perhaps your favourite free market think tank.
Right.
And the name that kept coming up again and again was the Institute of Public Affairs.
Well, they do some fine work, and I was about to suggest a symposium just there of the Triple J people. I mean, generally you put those brains together and you're going to come up with something subpar, I would imagine.
Immediately. I mean, one thing gets a bunch of Triple J announcers in the one room at the one time. One of them is free beer, and the other one is any opportunity to discuss free market think tanks. And from the Institute of Public Affairs, shortly we will be speaking to John Roscombe. But at the moment, we are talking bans. Bans on bans, or just bans, what you would like to see banned.
Of course.
And we have Daniel from Sydney. Good evening, Daniel.
Hello, Stirling. Very, very happy to be on the show.
Well, it depends what you're about to say, but please.
I'm kind of sick of the ban on the free market in elections.
Explain.
I live in East Balmain, and it's an electorate in which the Greens and Labour come very close, and they've both issued their own bans on
unholy alliance. Yes,
and they've issued their own bans on showers themselves by their caucuses. But I'd like to, I'm living in East Balmain. We have the views, and have the most money, and it frustrates me that I'm seeing this these bunch of mutants play around at the polling booths and get these votes. When we're
I must say, Daniel, this is the longest conversation I've ever had with anybody from Balmain. It actually is the longest conversation because it ends now.
Thank you, sir.
But thank you, Daniel. We have Neil from Brisbane. Neil, Queensland has been good to the show tonight. Neil?
Yes, well, we like to be well represented in this Uni-Campbell paradise.
Yes, and you are?
Yes.
Sterling, I'd just like to say that I really think we should see mid-strength beer at sporting events banned.
Yes. Yes.
And really, I think it's because we should all be aspiring to be in the corporate box.
Magnificent.
Yes.
Magnificent.
Well, I certainly thought so.
Yes. What you have articulated is Howard aspirationalism at its best.
Well, and free market economies.
Yes. That is simple goal setting and goal achievement.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And mid-strength beer only sort of fuels the fire of mediocrity that sees people paying for seats in the outer.
Yes.
So what you're suggesting is that to get out of mid-strength beer country, you should aspire to something greater to get into a corporate box.
Yes.
Where you can drink full strength. Well, you wouldn't be drinking, maybe a Crown Lager or something, but probably going for one of the better bottles of bubbly.
But only the educated upper class, I feel, deserve full-strength beer.
Well, at the moment, Neil, you would have to agree, if you are one of us upon whom a benevolent Protestant God has smiled, the corporate box is a natural place to be. But 11 years of Howard has opened up the opportunity for anybody who wants to aspire to getting into a corporate box. They can, and if you want, if you work hard enough, you can end up on Australian Princess.
If you tithe enough of your income.
Yes,
you can.
And if you work hard enough, you can get a personalised number plate with something pithy and witty on your Commodore. Yeah. These things can happen, and if you work hard enough and contribute to Australian society, the government will do everything it can to keep a cap on the price of pre-mixed bourbon and cola to keep you sedated.
Well, honestly, I'd steer clear of Australian-made cars, to be honest. But
I've never driven one, so I wouldn't know. But Neil, thank you. It has been. I want everyone to take that away from Neil's call.
Yes,
you can aspire.
There's an important lesson.
You are worthy enough.
And I like the thing about the personalised number plates
on the Commodore. Yes, thank you. Shortly. It is a great honour to be speaking to John Roscombe from the Institute of Public Affairs. This is Restoring the Balance on Triple J.
Restoring the Balance. Re-education lesson number 3.
The Greens. The Greens appear as an attractive party to nubile, idealistic young girls who are duped into joining the party only to have their innocence robbed in depraved all-night bacchanalian orgies that pass as initiation ceremonies. The Greens advocate a return to the Stone Age and the execution of all redheads.
Restoring the Balance. Re-education lesson number 3.
Triple J, Restoring the Balance. You're with Stirling Addison and my good friend Spencer Penrose. This is 2 hours of conservative comment, an oasis in a bleak landscape of left liberal hogwash. We seek to restore the balance, and I think we do a very good job. The music you just heard, Modest Mouse, Little Motel, which is from the feature album, Your Taxes Barely at Work. I trust state funds were used to buy the album. It's called We Were Dead Before the Ship Even Sank.
When they toured here recently for the very first time, Modest Mouse gave us a preview of some of their new songs. Set for release around the world soon, their 5th album confirms just how special this band is. Featuring newest member, Johnny Marr on guitar, the unique stamp of Modest Mouse is still there, as is the crazy intensity of singer Isaac Rock. We Were Dead Before the Ship Even Sank, the latest work by Modest Mouse. New music,
Restoring
that's
the
Triple
Balance.
J.
Proudly using non-union labour.
Kingsmill desperately attempting to quash our promo there. It is now a delight to welcome into the studio here on Restoring the Balance Mr. John Roscombe, Executive Director of the Institute of Public Affairs. The IPA, of course, consistently voted by Triple J announcers as their favourite free market think tank.
No surprise there.
And
I'm completely honoured.
Yes, well,
God bless you.
As are we. John, just to give you and the Triple J audience some indication as to your shall we say, conservative credentials.
I like to think of them as impeccable.
Yes. Well,
that's always the adjective we use.
Two are one and the same. Former Executive Director of the Menzies Institute in Canberra, former Chief of Staff to the great David Kemp, plus Manager of Government and Corporate Affairs at Rio Tinto. Don't say mining on the ABC. It'll be followed by a staunch boo, because apparently it's bad to dig things up and pay for our way of life.
And it's bad to drive cars that have metal and bad to use knives and forks that use stainless steel.
Yes, boo, we say. Boo on behalf of everyone who listens to Triple J.
If only everything could be made out of renewable wood.
Yes, or renewable hemp. If any was left around that wasn't smoked by people listening to this very station. John, I wanted to ask, are these halcyon days for those of us who love the free market?
Oh, we've had 11 glorious years of the Howard government, but I think there's still a long, long way to go. I mean, we still will be paying lots of money, for example, to fly Qantas to Los Angeles because the federal government has refused to open up the free market for airlines. We still pay, farmers are still being dudded by the AWB because the government refused to open up the wheat market. So we've had it pretty good, but I think there's still a long way to go. I think we're a long way away from a free market nirvana.
What can Triple J listeners do to contribute to that free market nirvana? Should they urge their parliamentary representatives to accelerate the privatisation of, say, the ABC?
Well, it's not even... Well, that would be a good start, but of course you would exclude Triple J from that. But it would be a campaign around people saying, look, they want to decide what to do with their own money. And the idea that's been around for a few hundred years that government is a better judge of how people spend their own money is fallacious now as it's always been. So, that's what the debate has to be about.
Yes. Now, speaking of how people spend money, I don't know if you saw this week, Spencer, but the Minister of Education, Julie Bishop...
Wonderful lady.
...called upon students...
She believes in history.
Yes, called upon students to be more frugal with their money. They are far too prodigal. Now, when I was ambushed by Robbie Buck, I was speaking to him about the whole Hicks issue. I'm still baffled by students who complain about Hicks. Students who apparently can't get off the couch, call their solicitor or their funds manager or whoever it is manages their family trust and get their family trust to pay for their tuition in advance, thus securing the generous 10% deposit. Why are students not doing this?
Well, they might need to talk to their parents.
Well, what is the problem? Because I know many students as part of the Planet Shakers group, and many of the Vision Quest, people that I get around with, and I mean they spend money on obviously rent, books, clothing, and still they find the funds to commit 20 to 30% of their income tithing to the church.
Yes.
What's the problem here?
Well, exactly, and given that Hicks is something you pay for in the future, it's not a direct impost on your immediate income.
I would also urge students who claim to be labouring under the yoke of Hicks to have some consideration for the government ministers whose job it is to impose and in some cases lift or raise the amount being imposed 4 degrees. They did not have to deal with Hicks when they were at university.
Right.
For them, the whole idea of Hicks is something new and slightly befuddling. We must give them the Christian benefit of the doubt and be tolerant of them. Would you agree with that, John?
Well, we do, and I think we have to be especially tolerant of people who are doing arts degrees.
Yes.
I mean, that is surely the biggest challenge to the Hicks system as we face it at the moment, to have spent 3 or 7 years, as some of my friends and compatriots did, learning about Renaissance architecture in Florence, only to struggle to find a job, and they just can't understand why employers are not knocking down their door.
Well, the only creative writing they end up doing is on a doll form.
Of course.
Yes, I applied for the packing job at Woolies. Yes. It's ridiculous.
No, but if they do that, then they can be packing and listening to Triple J as we speak.
Yes. Now, the Institute of Public Affairs, you take a bold stand on many issues.
We do.
The Kyoto Protocol being one. Where do you stand on that?
Well, it's a question of one, the science is still out on whether the planet is warming or cooling.
Yes.
Secondly, it's a question of to what extent humans are causing it. And thirdly, it's the next question of to what extent are we going to cut off our nose to spite our face. I mean, this week the Europeans were talking about imposing new mandatory limits on greenhouse gas emissions. The Europeans have a lot of their power from nuclear energy, and they have been flouting the Kyoto Protocol for years.
Yes.
So before anyone starts signing anything, let's look at what our friends, the French, are doing first.
Yes, yes. And what are they doing?
Nothing.
Apart from...
Building more nuclear power stations.
Apart from lionising sex with underage girls.
Of course. I mean, it only took... I mean, speaking of nuclear power, it only took something like 45 years for Maralinga to be okay for the Maralinga people to settle there once again. So, I mean, really, what is the problem?
Yeah, but remember, Maralinga was a government enterprise. If it was free enterprise, it might all be different.
Yes, I would also point out to Triple J listeners about the strongest argument in favour of nuclear power. Dude, it's organic.
That's right, it's clean and green.
It's natural.
Yes.
It powers the planet.
And green is a colour that all Triple J listeners understand.
Yes.
It's the only colour.
They do on Sunday morning.
Yes, yes. And Jeanette Howard has gone to bed each night for the last 30 years with a nuclear-powered love machine. And I see no ill effects on her.
Is that so?
Yes, yes.
And you know this how?
Well, this is talking Kirribilli young liberals, and I will not divulge any more than that. We have been speaking all night, John, about David Hicks, the Institute of Public Affairs. Where do you stand on this man?
Oh, no, the question would be put him on trial and let him explain why he talked about going to Afghanistan to kill Jews.
Does he need new publicists, though? Because clearly things aren't working. I mean, I've only seen one photo of him, and it's in that blue T-shirt. I mean, I'd like to see a new look.
Is that the one when he was
bazooka?
Is that the one when he was 10 or 12, or is that the one?
It's in his early 20s,
unkempt and unshaven, holding that rocket launcher on his shoulder?
I think so. What's the way forward here?
It's probably a suit and a shave and a haircut.
Yes,
that's exactly how we meant to feel sorry for him.
John, I want to ask you this question finally. It's a dangerous question.
Please.
It's a dangerous question for anybody listening to Triple J. What does your average Triple J listener have to fear from sound conservative thought?
Nothing.
Yes.
They have to look forward to freedom, they have to look forward to making their own decisions, and they have to look forward to less government intervention in their lives. It's something to look forward to, and it's a challenge we must continue to face, and we're delighted that Triple J is taking the momentum forward.
That is what we do here on Restoring the Balance. John Roscombe from the Institute of Public Affairs, thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure to be with you this evening.
God bless.
You are listening to what is nearly the end of 2 hours of conservative thought. You're with myself, Stirling Addison, and Spencer Penrose. We were speaking to John Roscombe from the Institute of Public Affairs, and he touched briefly on the issue of nuclear power. And Spencer, I note with interest that the Labor Party still have not embraced nuclear power, which, of course, according to our Prime Minister, is a safe, economical, environmentally friendly form of energy.
Well, that would be correct, because Christ made nuclear power.
Yes.
Now, of course the Labor Party wouldn't be.
Well, they are anti-Christ, anti-family, anti-Australia, anti-American, un-Australian.
They always see the negative.
Now, the ALP persists with baseless concerns over nuclear safety because they fear a meltdown, which is understandable. They saw one firsthand with Mark Latham.
Of course.
Yes.
Yes, indeed. That was... I mean, really, that needed some water to cool off, didn't it?
Yes. Much water, salt water, or yes.
That was a China syndrome there.
Yes.
Glory days they were.
But I say to Triple J listeners and ALP voters, we need electricity. This is a sad reality.
Yeah.
Because what will power the new Green Party fridge? The Green Party are releasing a fridge.
Oh.
It can hold over 20 bottles of Chardonnay and is strong enough to support over 2,000 Michael Looney cartoons.
Yes, of course, and you need nuclear power for that.
Yes.
That's a hefty load.
Yes, especially the pithy, winsome ones. The ones that make us think.
Yes.
The Looney cartoons that make us go, funny yet true.
Teapots and ducks are very heavy.
Yes, well said.
And the electricity load.
Now, we're also talking off-air about multiculturalism.
Of course.
A great shibboleth of the ALP. Wow. Now, your take on this?
Well, I mean, certainly Paradise Community Church, we're a rainbow society with sort of the Benetton Church, an Angelina Jolie-esque church. We embrace everyone. I mean, it's a compassionate church.
Yes.
We have a compassionate stance, certainly towards asylum seekers, supporting fast onshore processing, all that kind of thing. To the extent... that what we would do is asylum seekers, upon being processed, would get an appointment appointment with our new visitors pastor.
Yes.
As well as a voucher for a free cappuccino at our in-house refreshment kiosk.
Yes, but not to queue jumpers, I hope.
No, of course not. But basically, we're all for anything that brings the people in. Because we have a whole variety of speakers, a whole variety of people, not just from all over the world, but from all over America as well.
Yes.
As part of our church.
God's own Christian nation.
At the same time, I understand what you're saying. Who knows who is a sleeper agent for some terrorist cell? Who knows where the red light, the laser dot of a sniper's rifle is going to land?
Yes, yes.
But of course, on a Sunday night service with all the light displays, the laser displays, it's very difficult to tell sometimes.
Yes, these are good points and well made, robustly made. This is Restoring the Balance on Triple J. You have been listening to myself, Stirling Addison, and Pentecostal Youth Minister and member of Family First, Spencer Penrose. Spencer, thank you very much for joining us on the show this evening.
Angels on your body. Thank you so much, Stirling, and you too can live in the light of Christ. Thanks for your time.
Yes, thank you. We walk together in that light. I would also like to thank the guests on the show tonight, Defence Analyst Dr. Carlo Kopp, Senator Barnaby Joyce, and from the Institute of Public Affairs, John Roscombe. Go to the Restoring the Balance website on Triple J to find out more about the podcast, which will feature hymns from various church choirs, Anglican church choirs. Also, Hottest 100, your favourite private school song. You can email that in, restoringthebalance at triplej.abc.net.au. Also, beat the drum of your favourite Highland marching band. We will be launching that shortly. We will be back next week, same conservative time, same conservative channel. This has been Restoring the Balance.
Triple J.